Good evening and welcome to our showcase this evening. My name is Christopher Downer and I'll be your host for the evening. Unless Cathleen asks me to leave, that's another story. The next person I'd like to introduce, well actually I haven't introduced anyone at all as of yet. The first person I'd like to introduce is actually Cathleen Fillmore. And Cathleen is the owner of Speakers Gold Bureau and a well-known marketing consultant to speakers around the world. She's the founder of the talent show, which is now in its 6th year. She also is the founder and past president of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers in Atlanta, Canada. Kathleen has a strong journalistic background and has written 5 books, as well as hundreds of articles over the years. She's absolutely passionate about working with speakers. So let's give her a warm round of applause.
And somewhere I have my notes. And the first thing I would like to say is I would ask Chris to leave, but he's in the security industry, so you don't mess with people like that. But seriously, Chris, I would like to thank you. You've been here from the very start. You've done a great job. And one year I forgot the voting cards at home, and Chris saved me. So he really shares the vision of what I'm doing, and I really appreciate your contribution. And we would like to thank our sponsors, Barb of Blitz Business Success, who's got an amazing event on this weekend in Barrie. And she's a brilliant businesswoman. And Ronnie Rivas, who couldn't be here tonight, but he is the designer I work with. He does brilliant promo pages, the best I've ever seen. And Jelly Skin devises cell phone covers, customized, so that you have an ad for your cell phone every time you hold up your phone. They are brilliant. And pick up their business cards. A Toronto-based company, and just amazing. The last couple of years, this is our 6th year, and the last couple of years, the last 3 years, we've had a fancy 3-course dinner at a fancy hotel, and lots of people, 130 and so on. And I decided that I wanted to go back to grassroots and just see how that would work. So we'll see. We'll assess this afterwards and see whether we want to do this or go the fancy route. But I am so glad, as things turned out, that I did it this way. The fancy dinner wouldn't work for me at all this year. At 6:30 on Sunday morning, I got a phone call saying my son was in acute care in emergency. He was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia 10 years ago, and he made medical history because he's one of the youngest people ever diagnosed with just basically the old people's version of leukemia. So for 10 years, it was latent. And then on the weekend, very suddenly, when you least expect it, just how life happens, doesn't it? It reared its ugly head. So I have to admit that rather than dashing directly to the hospital, I turned on my computer and went online. And I emailed my inner circle. And I emailed 2 groups that I belong to, because I needed support. Here's what I didn't know. By the time I got to the hospital, there were tons of messages of love and support that I was able to read to my son, who was deathly ill. Severely dehydrated, very high fever that they hadn't been able to stabilize for 8 hours, because he went in around 3 o'clock in the morning. And very dehydrated. They had him on antibiotics, saline drip, potassium, everything to manage his body and all the minerals he was losing. So his wife and I, we just sat there and cried as I read those messages. And he would say, well, who's that person? And I said, well, you don't know, but that's okay. Day 2, the prognosis really wasn't good. He was going to need bone marrow tests. He was going to need chemo immediately once they stabilized him. You can't have it when you're unstable. So prospects weren't great. I posted on Facebook. My niece posted from there onto Facebook. Carmen posted on Facebook. Next time I went into the hospital, he was scrolling down his iPhone. I don't think he spoke to me after that. He was just, oh, and crying from the messages of love around the world. Who's this guy in India, Mom? I said, I don't know, honey. I'm connected to him. And love and prayers have astounding power when one is receptive. Could you stand up? So what's really odd how things happen and play out is that the speakers tonight fit in so amazingly with the theme that my son unwittingly dictated. And the theme is courage, because he's been doing this for a long, long time, very courageously. The theme is community. And the theme is connection. So thanks to all of you. You are bringing such a gift to all of us. And there may be 50 people in the room. There will be 50 different people who leave the room, which is exactly why I do this. So congratulations.
Thanks very much, Kathleen. We'll be now introducing our speakers, our judges, in order of importance. Excuse me. Siobhan Voisin has promoted a world-ranked boxer, built a mall, taught hundreds of entrepreneurs how to start and grow their companies, and interviewed some of the world's most accomplished leaders for Motivated magazine. She's a recipient of the Rogers Women of the Year, Women of Influence Award, and the Canadian Youth Business Foundation's Outstanding Mentor of the Year. Siobhan has spoken at TEDx Penn Quarter in Washington, D.C., TEDx Westmount in Montreal, and the Top 10 event, where 10 celebrated Canadians had 10 minutes to share 10 things we should know before we die, which was held in Toronto. Siobhan lives in Manheim, Ontario, with her best friend, mentor, and husband, Steve, and is the mother to their 4 children, Aiden, Skylar, Ashley, and Ireland. She's focusing her efforts today on helping provide hope for victims of human trafficking in Canada. So let's give her a hand. Thanks for being here. Our next equally important judge, Bruce Hunt, is founder of Toronto Speakers Academy and president of the 58-year-old downtown Toronto Toastmasters Club. He is a sought-after public speaking trainer and coach, and has helped hundreds of individuals and organizations become bigger and better speakers and leaders. Bruce believes that everyone has a message that can benefit someone else, and has dedicated his life to helping people develop the confidence and skills to share it in an impactful way. Bruce lives in downtown Toronto with his wife and their rescued cats. We'll have to hear more about it a little later on. He's an avid scuba diver who speaks regularly on his experiences shark diving as a means to share his passion and to help advocate for shark preservation and protection. I don't know who the third person is on stage, but they just came in, they sat down. Just thought you'd pop in. It looks, it's great. It's really great. Wait till I hear these guys and girls speak. Grillen Noble is president of Yellow House Events, an event marketing and planning firm based in Toronto with an office in Orlando, which she founded 9 years ago. Yellow House Events was just named number 61 in W100 list of fastest growing women-led companies in Canada. She was also a finalist for RBC's Women Entrepreneurs Awards. Let's give her a judge's hand. Now, speakers will be sharing a mic. So what I would ask you to do as you come up, I'll give you the microphone. You can do your talk, and then I will steal it back from you and give it to the three judges, and they will make disparaging comments on everything that you've done, and then we'll go on to the next speaker. Fair enough? Precious, you have a question. Listen, for $20 you can do whatever you want to do. Great, we'll do that. Okay. So our first speaker is Katie Zappari. Katie, why don't you come up? Katie Zappari is the founder and CEO of a social enterprise titled Make Your Mark, which has a mission to develop and inspire young leaders of great character. She's a top 20, under 20 finalist, a recipient of the prestigious TD Canada Trust $75,000 scholarship for community leadership, and is one of the youngest recipients of the Governor General's Caring Canadian Award. Katie hopes to use her leadership background to empower an entire generation of youth. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I've always believed that our lives are defined by the choices that we make. I have a poignant memory from my childhood of witnessing a grade 7 girl with a mental illness being bullied. She was being cornered by a group of about 7 of my peers, and they were teasing her and mocking her and egging her on. And she was just crying and calling out for help. And as I saw that look of complete hopelessness in her eyes, I knew that I couldn't remain silent. The Canadian Health Institute of Research estimates that 1 in 3 Canadian youth experience some form of bullying throughout their school years. And while the bullying may be short-term, the effects are devastating. Depression, low self-esteem, and even suicide are some of the many outcomes that are connected to bullying. It's interesting because it seems to me that we live in a time where our youth are more connected than ever before. Through their phones, through the internet, through social media, through gaming, through television, you name it. But what we see more and more is that this 21st century connectedness is actually succeeding in isolating and demoralizing our young people. The youth are now faced with bullying. They're faced with the comments that people have towards them day in, day out. They wake up with their phones, they go to bed with their phones. It's with them constant. In previous decades, you could come home and it would be a safe space. You would have different friends. Now, kids are constantly tuned on. Thus, it is the great irony of our time that although we are so connected, you'd think that they belong to some larger global village and community, they're feeling more and more isolated, inadequate, and they're shying away from their full potential. Our culture and society is selling them this message that they need to live for the nights that they won't remember. They're glamorizing sex, drugs, partying, and quite frankly, they're glamorizing mediocrity. And I believe that we need to take a stand. And that's why I decided to take action on the issue. Just this past year, I launched a social enterprise titled Make Your Mark, which has a mission to develop and inspire young leaders of great character. We offer programs, workshops, retreats, conferences, inspirational media that meets youth where they're at and gives them the tools that they need to navigate these very difficult adolescent years. But we're so much more than just an organization. What I'm seeing actually is that we're going to become a movement of youth empowering youth. We're starting a movement where youth are saying no to bullying and yes to standing up against injustices. We're starting a movement where young people are choosing not to live for the nights that they won't remember, but instead investing their time in making memories that they'll never forget. Ultimately, we're starting a movement of empowering youth to make their mark in their schools, homes, communities, and ultimately, the world. As the great Martin Luther King Jr. so famously said, our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about the things that matter. In my humble opinion, developing people, especially young people, to be kind, caring, compassionate, globally minded leaders of change matters. And it starts with us. The time is now. If the youth really are our future, and the future really is in our hands, then the question is, what are we going to do with it? Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, congratulations on wanting to begin a movement. What an amazing vision that is, first of all. And secondly, the thing that I wanted to really congratulate you on is how you came away from the podium. I remember one of the very first paid speeches I ever had, and I was prepared to get behind the podium and was sort of thrown onto the stage and started to just stutter my way through it. So, love that you did that, and clearly your passion came through. Amazing use of body language, the arm was going, and that translates. People see that. I couldn't see your eyes, obviously, but I imagine that they were just lit up. So I think you did a great job.
Okay, so first of all, Katie, I just want to commend you on your courage for coming out here. We need more people like you that are willing to get up in front of audiences and really take a leadership position and speak about, obviously, issues that are relevant and that you're passionate about, but this is also an extremely important issue right now. And having been someone that was bullied as a kid, I wish I had someone that was standing up for me like you. We have an interesting vantage point from here. Looking at you from behind, good view. But you know, we didn't get the full impact that the audience had, so I found sometimes I was looking out at the audience and I saw that everyone was so engaged, they were paying attention, and you just did such a wonderful job. Congratulations.
The beauty of going third is you can say ditto. So I will. Really, congratulations. A couple of things I would say. I loved the strong start with a story. I think starting with a story is always, a great way to go. It engages everybody, and it provides everybody with a visual. So I think that's a great piece to the presentation. For me, I felt that the tone, the pace, the use of language was perfect. There was all of that was really on. I think that there was a little part in the, I'm going to say early middle, where I felt I wanted you to get to your thesis. I wanted you to get to, okay, why? I think we all understand the bullying. You really moved me with the story. So if I could give any critique, it would be maybe to move past that part a little bit quicker, although I do think it is important to build. And then, very unusually, you actually really got to your momentum and passion point towards the end, which is unusual. So I commend you for that. That's hard to do, to actually have the discipline to hold that back and then bring it out right till the end. And then my last piece I would say is, I like the finish. What are you going to do about it? Obviously, I think if in a different setting, you might then have a call to action of some kind. I assume you would have some kind of PowerPoint, or hopefully not PowerPoint, but something that would have a URL or somewhere that we could go to, because by the end of that, I'm going to say, you know, we all felt pretty moved to help you. So congratulations, really well done.
Crystal Earle. As the co-founder of the Canadian Youth Empowerment charity, Live Different, Crystal has inspired young adults from across North America and Europe to change themselves and change the world through a lifestyle of kindness. Crystal is a speaker, writer, success coach, yoga enthusiast, a global humanitarian, and most of all, mom to her 8-year-old daughter, Widleen. So let's give a round of applause to Crystal.
I was second-guessing my stiletto choice, but I'm just going to go with it. Good evening. It's an honor to be here. And I'm standing on the stage tonight because my life has been changed by a phone call. And that phone call led to a conversation with my dad that he might not even remember that we had, and it changed my life. And that conversation began a change in me. It was September 25th, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning when I answered my phone. And everything is frozen in my mind, because when you get a phone call like this, you always remember. It was my dad. Except I couldn't tell at first that it was my dad because he was crying so hard on the other end of the line. And all he kept saying was, "Crystal, Andrew's dead. Andrew's dead." Andrew Duncan was my 20-year-old brother. He was my only sibling. He died in an industrial accident at his part-time job trying to save somebody else. He actually gave up his life so that someone else could live. Died a hero. And when you experience loss in that degree and that fast, there's just this whole onslaught of emotions. You feel everything from shock and anger, and you don't know how to process everything. But there's one thing that I experienced that I did not expect. And it was how I felt about myself. And 5 days later, on September 30th, we buried my brother. And that night, later on, I was at my mom and dad's house, and I was sitting out on the front step in front of their house. And I was having a conversation with myself. And I was pressing play and repeat, play and repeat, play and repeat. On a conversation that I had had for as long as I could remember. And it was about who I was. It was about how much I reminded myself of all the failures I'd done and the fact that I was probably a mistake. That I would never feel like I was enough or good enough to ever do anything of any value. And that I always kept screwing up everything I touched. And as I sat on that step, and it was like I threw this prayer out, and I just said, will I ever feel like I'm enough? And a couple minutes passed, and I heard the door open behind me, and it was my dad. And he came out and he sat beside me, not knowing about the conversation that was going on in my head all these years. And he leaned over and he took my hand. And he said, "You know, Crystal, I love you. And I am proud of you. And you've always been enough for me." He had no idea about what was going on inside. And as I sat there holding my dad's hand, and I just accepted what he was saying, taking into consideration all the complications surrounding our relationship in life, I began to realize something. It wasn't really about the words that my dad said. Because I can't make people say things. We can't force people to do or say things that we feel we need. It was about the decision I made in that moment. Because I couldn't change what had happened. What's behind me is done. I can't change that. The door is closed on that, and I definitely can't control the circumstances I'm in. I couldn't bring my brother back to life. I can no more control circumstances than I can control the weather. But I can control one thing. I control the choice that I make every moment about who I'm going to be. And I'm the only one that gets to do that. And that night when I made that choice, I made a choice of courage. The courage to believe and to get perspective that maybe, just maybe, there's power in every decision that I made. As I began to live it out, it got easier and easier. And that choice is the reason that I'm standing here tonight. Thank you.
Crystal. So, first of all, I want to again commend you for the courage to come up and tell such a heartwarming, such a heartfelt story. And I think we were all engaged right from the beginning. It was such a powerful story about the loss of your brother and how that impacted you. I was really moved, and I think you did a wonderful job telling it. If I were to give you any sort of constructive, and this is very difficult, having you just told such a such a moving story to give you any sort of constructive feedback. But if I were to say that, I would say that maybe towards the end you could have you touched upon some we language. You started to talk about we, and had you just shifted a little bit more in your closing remarks, where you were talking about I, this is my choice. Had you just shifted a little bit more and included us in that, and said, maybe you can think about the choices that you make, and just included us a little bit more in the moral and the closing of the story. And that's a small comment just for, if you're sharing this again, you might want to just tweak it just a little bit. But what a beautiful story. Very moving, and thank you for sharing it.
One of my great joys in having motivated my magazine, I had this amazing opportunity to always interview people and get some advice from them. And Arlene Dickinson always said to me, in terms of speaking, that you should always be speaking from your heart, not your notes. And that's exactly what you did when you came up here. And it was even the way you sort of approached the stage. I saw that you were going to do that. I was just going to be straight from the heart. And I believe that's what moves audiences. People will connect to that vibration, and off you go. And I think I just also wanted to add that you have a beautiful voice. I mean, that just adds to the delivery. That's kind of a God-given thing, and you're very lucky. And I don't have any constructive criticism.
Yeah, Crystal, I think what impressed me right off the bat is I felt emotional in about the first, I'm going to call it 10 seconds. And anyone who's ever done any writing will know that's quite difficult because I know nothing about you. Just so everyone else knows, I didn't read anything about any of you, and I didn't watch any of the videos online because I wanted to be really fresh and really experience tonight's performance. So for me to feel moved, I've never met you, I don't know anything about you, and I felt like, oh God, it's going to be really embarrassing if I have some tears up here tonight. So that's really impressive in the first 10 seconds. Even in commercials we cry, and it takes them longer to establish character than that. And I think the reason I was moved is because you spoke from your heart. Also, the pauses and the pacing that you had in the very beginning is what added to the drama of that phone call and that moment. So I think that really lent a lot to it. So I think that was great. The only thing I would say similarly is love the story, love the courage, love that you tied back the actual present of being up here speaking to the content, but I was left with a little bit of a why. So now what? And maybe that'll be your next speech. So thank you, I think it was great.
Dee Precious Brown is a retired nurse who shares her life experience from the heart in a down-to-earth manner. Her enthusiasm in teaching you to enjoy every moment in your personal life and career give you no choice but to begin creating passion in your life. Let's welcome.
Before I begin, there's one thing I want you to know. When I'm in a crowd of awesome people, sometimes my hand gets really excited. So if you see my hand doing this, I would like you all just to wave back to me. Can I see you do that? Thank you very much. You have no idea what an honor and a privilege it is for me to stand here today and share my story. 10 years ago, like Alice in Wonderland, I was going to go on a journey down the rabbit hole. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, a progressive disease that would change my life totally. Simple things like putting makeup on and putting earrings on was not going to be what I could do. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and instead of my car, I started to ride a four-wheel, bright red scooter. The doctor said I needed medication. He said, it's not going to cure anything, but it will mask the symptoms. But I have you to know, there is nothing you can do. Even prayer will not stop you from being in a wheelchair in 6 years. And I sat there and said, what? I said, you're standing there with 100% of everything and you've left me with nothing? That is not the way it's going to go. You can have your 98% because you're the doctor, but I'm taking my 2%. And then I thought about medication and I thought, no. All I could see was me sitting in the bottom of a garbage can. The lid was coming over, and I knew when that lid was on tight, nobody was going to find me anymore. So I decided to decline medication. I left the office with my 2%, and I went home. And I knew for me the decision was the right decision, even though that was the beginning of my journey down the rabbit hole. Over the next 8 years, my life that I knew was going to change drastically and constantly. I was forever adapting. As the disease progressed, my family and my friends became more loving and more supportive. We looked at the option of medication, but the voice in me said, not now. And I looked at it and said, why not? And then deeper I went into the hole. Now the journey was becoming more personal. I needed to face my fears, and I needed to start grieving the things that I was losing, because I was losing a lot. Somehow this disease had to be meaningful. It had to be. And I wandered around in the rabbit hole. And then one day, something said, dig a little deeper. And again, I said, what? It said, look in your heart. So I looked in my heart and I realized how I was perceiving the rabbit hole was not empowering me. I looked at the rabbit hole as a gift. And I realized that everything that had come my way was a gift from the rabbit hole. I had a spiritual teacher. I learned how to meditate. I went to India for 6 months. Holy moly, eh? And then I started to realize that I was the one that was in control. I was looking for a purpose in my life, and I realized I can create it. The rabbit hole gave me a place to create it. I knew that I could find my own center of peacefulness. And with that, then I could relook at medication and say, oh my God, I am so grateful I didn't take the medication at that time, because it would have masked my awesome journey down the rabbit hole. So 10 years ago, I went down the rabbit hole in fear, and 8 years ago, I came out in love. And I say to you guys, hang on to your 2%. Don't let anybody take that away from you, because with love, anything is possible. Anything is possible. Now, I know you're wondering, did she ride her red scooter here? I drove a car. Thank you for having me here tonight.
It's my turn to start. Got off easy the first 2 times. That was fantastic. I loved it. For me, it had all of the key components. It was personal. There was, of course, you did the old speaking trick, breaking the ice, and doing something somewhat self-deprecating with your hand things. That's always a great public speaking trick. Also helps to calm the nerves. I don't know if it had that effect for you. I think why I really enjoyed the actual execution of your presentation, there was 1 or 2 ums. Those things will come with time. But what was great about it was I got the thesis. I got the hang on to your 2%. I got what I was supposed to take from what you were saying and what I was supposed to do with it. So you took a very personal experience and story and you did turn it into a lesson that I could take away. So for me, that was really powerful, so thank you. And the only other thing I would say is there's a few places where you might slow down a bit, but that could also just be the acoustics. So well done, thanks.
Very, very brave delivery. I mean, that's what I took away from this speech immediately. And maybe not so much a speaking technique to, you know, explain to the audience about your hand. I thought engaged the audience to be on your side immediately. That's very powerful to be able to do at the beginning of a speech. To have them with you right off the bat is kind of a magical thing in speaking. I loved your little voices. I thought that was engaging. Right away you sort of get some humor going. I don't know if you noticed you did that. You had some little voices brought in. The only piece of advice I might give is that, and again, it's because we're here at the beginning, you began at the podium and you were right there at the microphone and you had the courage to step out. And had you had the handheld mic, away you would have gone. And you're a little bit closer to the audience that way. And sometimes that, again, is a little more engaging, but I found it magical. And one last thing, I mean, when we're talking about shift of perspective, that's a very powerful message, and I think that came across in your speech as well, and that I loved it.
Congratulations, Dee. You are a walking, breathing, speaking inspiration. And I enjoyed every moment of your speech. I think you crafted it extremely well. I mean, you could have given that same talk, even if you didn't have it so perfectly tuned, and it would have been inspirational, but I think it made it all the more powerful that you crafted it extremely well. You used the metaphor of the rabbit hole, and then you returned to the rabbit hole 4, 5, maybe 6 times, just to keep reminding us that, you know, about that metaphor part of the speech, and I really like that. And then you came in, you closed so strong. It was very powerful. And I admire you. You've inspired me. Thank you.
Jeremy Tracy is a keynote speaker and certified world-class speaking coach. He's also a holistic lifestyle and NLP coach. His wellness keynotes and workshops share real-life, manageable tools that allow you to create healthy, positive change for you and your family. Welcome.
Had you been standing on the side of the road in Elmira, you'd have seen me and our 9-year-old son Nolan driving toward you on our unicycles. 2.5 years ago, I learned to ride on one wheel, and it wasn't long before our 3 sons were right there behind me. Now, when you drive your unicycle through a small town, what kind of things do you think you'll hear? Hey, look, no hands! Hey, bud, you lost half your bicycle. After that, the next most common thing you'll hear is, wow, your balance is amazing. One day, young Nolan looks at me and says, Dad, I don't understand why people say that. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, if you take 2 people, and the first one has great balance, but they don't really want to do this, they'll probably never get it. Then you say, you take the second person, maybe their balance isn't so hot, but if they want to get it bad enough, they'll get it eventually, won't they, Dad? I said, Nolan, that's a great insight. And then I asked him the same question I'll ask you. Where else in life do you think that might be true? Where sheer determination is far more important than raw talent. You may be thinking, come on, Jeremy, 10-year-old boys don't think that way. But you see, Nolan understands something that people on the side of the road don't. He was there to watch me and his two older brothers, and most importantly, he went through it himself. That painful learning curve of riding a unicycle, which at times got downright ugly. I'm talking temper tantrums, stamping the feet, kicking the unicycle. Have you ever seen a kid get so upset they're sobbing uncontrollably because of the frustration? We got to that point one day and I sat down with my middle son Garrett and he looked at me and said, Dad, you have to quit the temper tantrums, you're embarrassing us. It's good. The truth is that it was tough for all of us. All four of us struggled with this challenge. And I assure you that we are not the most talented unicyclists you'll find, but we are determined. Do you know how I know this? Because now we go off-road unicycling. For real. Now, raise your hand if you'd like to learn to ride a unicycle, if that's your big goal in life. A couple, that's not bad. Even if that's not your goal to ride a unicycle, this same truth will help you. Whether your goal is to do with your professional career, your business, or your personal life, if it's really important to you and you want results, always remember Nolan's observation that determination trumps talent every time. When you apply determination and drive to your goals, you will see yourself creating and reaching results that you would never, ever achieve with talent alone. And before you know it, people will walk up to you and say, wow, what you do is amazing.
Thanks, Jeremy, for sharing that very powerful message. And I liked how you started off with the story. You were very clear, so we knew every step of the way what you were driving towards about reaching our goals. I thought you had some really good rhetorical devices in there with the rhetorical question. Again, I think it would have been more impactful for me if I was out in the audience watching you, because I felt we were missing out on something because of the view we have here. But I could see that, the way you interacted with the audience, everyone was totally engaged. They laughed at some of your jokes, which, it's always a tough thing to pull off humor. So I commend you for that. And I feel like I'm going to go out and go after my goals a little more powerfully. Thanks. Sure.
I would say something to the same effect. I feel like because we were behind you, we didn't get the full effect. You were very close to the edge of the stage, and so what I ended up doing was watching the audience's reaction, which was very positive. I loved that your message was around determination, trumping talent, and for a brief second there, you were turning to the audience to almost ask them to accept, like there was this sort of edge you can too. I think you could have gone a little bit further with it. I think that, we have this great opportunity when we're on the stage to inspire people to rise to their fullest potential, and I think that I was right there. I think you could have just gone a little bit more, but I really enjoyed it, and I think if I was front row, I would have loved it even more.
I would say the first thing I noticed about you is you have a very easy confidence about you, which puts everyone at ease. I think that's a great thing to capitalize on. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the motivational component to it. I feel similar to you that I feel that there was a shorter presentation there that was stretched out into a longer presentation, and that you could go a little deeper. So I don't know, you're going to have to draw on that story, but I think the moment where Nolan has the realization that determination trumps talent is good, and I think, again, I walked away with, I get it. The thesis is determination trumps talent, and I did feel that you started to go there with the audience, where you know, I felt encouraged that even if I wasn't particularly talented at something, I might be able to do it with determination. But I feel that if you really have done that, if you really have gone through all of those towns on that unicycle and you've really done that, you've got some more to draw on where you can flesh that story out a bit and go a little deeper with it. That would be my advice. But you know, great tone, great use of humor. You really drew your audience in, so well done.
Kelly Goyer is a coach, trainer, and fundraising professional with On Purpose Leadership in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Kelly's life mission, love and passion, is to focus his natural gifts on helping people connect with their full potential and capacity for joy by dismantling the prisons of doubt, fear, and judgment that have been built around them. Welcome. Thank you.
The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. That's one of my favorite quotes about the hero's journey, which is what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. What does that mean? Well, earlier this year, for the first time ever, as a father, I struck my 5-year-old son. Our family was under a lot of pressure. We weren't at our best. Neither was I. It left both of us feeling hurt, shocked, and very afraid. I apologized immediately afterwards and explained that that is not okay for anyone to do that, not even Dad. And I thought we were okay. I thought we were going to grow through it and we were going to be all right. And then 3 days later, I did it again. In life, you can either hide outside of the cave and talk about maybe someday going in, or you can find your courage. You can find that hero inside of you and step into the darkness and face your challenge. I saw in my mind's eye where my relationship was going with my son, and I didn't like what I saw. I found my courage, and I went in. Found someone to help, someone to talk to. And the first thing that she asked me was, Kelly, what's your relationship like with your dad? Not surprisingly, logical place to start. But what happened next really surprised me. All of the pain and the sadness and the distance that I felt between myself and my own father came rushing in. And I never even knew it was there. When life takes you somewhere challenging, it's because there's something you need to learn, or to let go of, or to heal. When life sends you a challenge, run to it. Welcome it. Say thank you for it. Because it holds within it the opportunity for you to be the dad that you're dreaming of being. To be the life partner, the leader, the business person, the hero. And when you step into that cave, the treasure that you find is you. You're it. You are what you're looking for. For me, now, there's patience, where before there was frustration. There's compassion and understanding, where before there was judgment. I have a deeper love and respect for my son as a human being than I did before. And I am becoming the father I dream of being. Thank you.
Okay, wow. I think what I love the most about your speech is that raw honesty. There's very few of us that can get up and talk to a room full of strangers about a dark side that we have. And I think, going into that cave of fear, you're obviously doing repeatedly here. So really commend you. It's very easy to talk about how a situation happened to you and you chose to be brave. But to do that and to come out and talk about something that isn't talked about much in front of a group of people is really brave. So I really commend you. I really like the technique you used to repeat the opening phrase, the opening quote that you like, because it, for most of us, we hear the quote the first time, we like it, we hear it on a surface level. When you stop, you repeat it, there's pause. I really understood it, and since it formed the framework of your entire speech, that was really important. I think if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have gotten as much out of it. So I think that was really powerful. And I think you also made a good personal to public conversion, I would call it, where you took the personal experience and then allowed us to take from it. So you went from the you to the us. And I thought that was good as well. So well done, thank you.
Don't clap. Very powerful and compelling for the very same reasons. I mean, to get up and talk about a moment of shame, something we just don't do. We don't do it sort of with our friends, our family, but to get on a stage, very, very powerful. I was moved as a parent. I have a 4-year-old. You imagine these, moments of impatience, and I was right there with you because we can all relate to these moments. So I thought that was very, very, very powerful. And I also really loved the manner in which you pause. You have a real natural inflection, and you're very comfortable on stage. So I think amazing. I'm very impressed.
Yes, I would echo the comments that my fellow judges have said, but I also say that, it takes incredible bravery. I mean, to do what you just did. It's one thing to be the hero of your story, which that can take courage in and of itself to get up in front of a room full of people and cast yourself as the hero. But you cast yourself as the villain of your story, and then you had to take us from this uncomfortable moment when we were feeling uncomfortable that you were the villain, and move us along to where you came out at the end the hero. So, excellent work. You obviously have the talent at this. You have the voice, the pacing, you have the presence on stage, so I can definitely see you taking this a long way. Did you come from Saskatoon today?
I did.
Okay, well you deserve an extra special credit that you came all the way from Saskatoon to entertain us and inspire us with that story. Thanks.
Dr. Ken Burton was a Canadian pastor for over 25 years. Recently, he founded a consulting firm focused on leadership. As a leadership consultant, Ken functions as a researcher, seminar facilitator, and leadership coach. His published doctoral work identified the essential qualities and competencies for effective 21st century leadership. Welcome.
It is this fate that I solemnly
assure you that I dread for you. That you may never find yourself in this position. In the state of never being able to cope with individual people or life itself and getting to the point where you simply desire to die. December the 28th, 2010, I found myself in that state. Having pastored for 26 years and being the one who cared for and supported other people, I discovered that I couldn't care for myself and help myself. My life had crashed, and I was diagnosed with burnout, pastoral burnout. It felt like my soul had been ripped out of me, and I was simply a shell. I became a recluse. I told people, do not call me, do not phone me. I don't want to talk to you. I became unconcerned about the issues of life, my family, my job, my home, even the breath that I would breathe. My desire was to turn and sit in a corner and just wish that life would be taken from me. The elements of burnout are very similar to waking up in the morning and finding that your bed is on fire and you go back to sleep simply because you don't care. Or when your friends who care about you call and you say to them, get off my back, leave me alone. You tend to focus on next weekend just to get you through Monday. But it was the grace of God, loving family, and remarkable friends and colleagues that helped me find my recovery. Those people helped me get through the experience that has changed my life. It's changed my life in a remarkable way because today, my concern is to help people, not as I did as a pastor, but to help people that are in leadership. Recognizing that there are people on the front line doing what they think is best for an organization or for a society, and they're being shot at. And the emotional drain sucks the life from us sometimes. In my work as a leadership coach dealing with individuals that hold leadership positions, my goal is to help them develop their leadership capacity, whether that be improving their character qualities or their competencies. But I've added a new component now, where I look into their lives and I listen for those triggers, where burnout is on the threshold and it's knocking. When I hear words that depersonalize relationships and people desire to simply use others as objects, or they're dissatisfied with any opportunity for personal growth, urgency grips me. And it demands that I take action to preclude the struggle that these people may find themselves in. For you see, it is my pain, my past pain, and my liberation that motivates me to help other people, people in leadership positions, people who are on the front lines. Yes, they put up a strong presence, but sometimes it's just a veneer because there's a vulnerability, sometimes an unknown vulnerability inside. Just waiting to break loose and bring them down. We have seen it numerous times when leaders fall, followers scatter. It is my hope that we as a society might take the steps in the future to not just shoot our leaders, but to build systems and structures around our leaders so that we can build them up and encourage them. To be people of transformation. To help those that are in leadership. Avoid the trauma, the destruction of having their soul ripped out because they've given what they haven't replenished. That's my hope. That we might change as a society our outlook and our perception of those in leadership. And let's build them up.
Fighting over the mic. Everyone wants to go first. Ken, I really enjoyed your speech. Obviously, you're very comfortable on the stage. I mean, I think that is the most obvious thing that I could say right now. You're a masterful speaker. I liked, just to mention a few things that you did extremely well was your pauses, right? You really let the point you were making stay with us for a moment before you moved on. You also oscillated between strong voice and a very, very soft voice, which really just drew us in because we couldn't quite, we wanted to make sure we didn't miss a word. I liked your message. I enjoyed your story about talking about burnout, and I liked the way you transitioned to leaders and leadership and the importance of making leaders real people. I thought a story about a leader in that particular segment of the speech might have drew us in a little bit more, and I'm just thinking Rob Ford. But I understood why you stood away from that, but I wonder if anyone else was thinking that while you were talking about the frailty and the vulnerabilities of leaders. A terrific job. I mean, obviously you're an incredible speaker. I would like to hear you speak again. And for tonight, I thank you for coming out and making this such a wonderful contest. Thanks.
I mirror all of those comments. Wonderfully put. When there's a speaker on the stage that really is just that comfortable with themselves and the message and their wording, I felt myself just flowing with you. So again, the pace of it is just beautiful. I would want to hear you again as well. And again, just really brave to get up and to mention that you've been in a space, really the darkest space, with an audience, becomes very engaging. We can all relate to moments that, that aren't the brightest. So I thank you for doing that.
I agree with a lot of the comments here. I think for me, whenever I hear any kind of a presentation, I always ask the question, why are they telling me that? When I read a novel, I always ask the question, why? Where are we headed? And so I loved the opening. I thought it was really strong. Of course, I would echo similar to the last speaker. Very difficult to get up and talk about a personal experience. Your bio is read out. You come out, and it was very unexpected. So I thought that was really powerful. But I think that the presentation, I was just asking if they're timed. I think that the point that you made, I would edit it. I would make it a little shorter, and I would either make it shorter, or I would replace it with another story. What I got was that you sought help, and that you found that help, and that now you're helping others. I think maybe the piece was missing was, so what does that mean for us? If we know somebody who's in that position, do we reach out to you? Or what are the signs we should look for? There was a little bit of okay, so why are you telling me this feeling to it? So I think it's got great form. I think a personal story and maybe a little bit of the why would make it awesome. And then you're a great speaker, great voice, great use of tone. Thanks.
I'm going to ask the speakers to stand. I mean, they're just a phenomenal group. Would you mind standing up and facing the audience? Let's give them a hand. It takes a lot of courage actually to stand in front of a group of people and be vulnerable. That's the word, be vulnerable about your life. So thanks very much for being here. And a round of applause for our great judges as well. Very, very much. I'd ask you to take out your ballot, and you'll need a pen. Does everyone have a writing utensil of sorts? And I'd ask you to choose 3 speakers on the ballot. Please do not only choose one, or else your ballot will be disqualified. Please choose 3 speakers. And we'll give you a couple minutes to fill this out, and then we'll have it collected. And then we'll be taking a 15-minute break to tally it all up. So if I can just ask, if I can impose on you just to fill that out now for us. I'm sorry? Yeah, just 3. No particular order. Not for you, so we'll have to have you removed from the other point. Welcome back. Even the judges have left. It's been so bad in here. It's horrible. The judges have gone. They've gone home, actually. We decided to start again with other 6 people in the room. Come on, you guys. Just before we get to the results for this evening, and I'm asked to leave again, I'm going to ask Jaime Leal to come to the stage. Chosen as the winner in your absence. Jaime is a well-established entrepreneur and business owner with more than 20 years of experience as a speaker in the field of change. He's a former paramedic, television host, and radio broadcaster. He has volunteered as a humanitarian relief worker in countries devastated by natural disasters and as a kidnapping survivor. As a humanitarian relief volunteer, Jaime has worked in Mexico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Chile, Argentina, and Haiti. His keynotes have inspired thousands of people around the globe. And as a consultant, Jaime helps leaders and business owners give their teams a raise in what he calls the emotional paycheck. Welcome.
Imagine you're living the dream. Imagine the house of your dreams, whatever it is. Go to that place right now. You're walking around. It's all yours. It's fully paid. No mortgage. You walk to the garage and you find a car. And it's also the car of your dreams. It's there for you. You have a wonderful family. Everyone's happy. You have your own business. It's running well. Actually, it's running so well that you can go on vacations anytime you want to. Is that living the dream? Yes, do you like it? That was my life in Mexico. I was living the dream, and I was 35. Forget about Freedom 55, I was Freedom 35. I was able to go everywhere I wanted. I was able to go and do what I loved. I was a former paramedic, and I had a lot of time on my hands, so I could go and help. I joined an NGO, and I started going different places. And I went to Somalia and Congo and Haiti and Chile, and everywhere I went, I connected with wonderful people. I was living the dream. At night, after a hard day of work, normally
that you get to talk about important things, personal things, with the people you work with. There, in a camping site, in a refugee camp, next to the fire, I would ask people that I liked, where are you coming from? The most often response was, Canada. I met wonderful Canadians in Chile, wonderful Canadians in Argentina, great Canadians working in a hospital in Haiti. That kind of stuck in the back of my head. I came back, it was 2010. I came back from Haiti, and then the tsunami happened in Chile. I went back again and held for another 2 weeks. I came back just to receive an award in Mexico. I was still living there. I was named Exemplary Citizen of the Year. I was living the dream. My business was going great. Amazing. But no matter I was living the dream, I wasn't happy. I still managed to create problems. So I had a headache that day. I had 2 employees that were kind of not performing. And I had a client who was asking for a discount. That gave me a headache. That gave me a headache. That was a problem. So I decided not to take this home. It was late at night. Why would I take this feeling? All my terrible problems. So I decided to stop on the way home at a convenience store. I remember walking in, grabbing a bottle of water, going out, paying it before, of course, but never made it to my car again. Someone put me on the back and I was lying on my face and I was looking back, trying to find out what happened. Maybe someone pushed me because they were fighting. And then I saw a gun and then a plastic bag. Suddenly my problems were totally different. I didn't care about the discount anymore. I would give everything for free. I needed to breathe. I needed air. That's what I wanted. I wanted to breathe. I wanted to be alive. I tried biting the bag. I remember I was trying to bite it and then I moved my hands and they put what I believe it was handcuffs. And I found myself in the backseat of another car. It wasn't my car. I'm a big guy and they made me fit between rows. They pushed me with the feet and then I started to faint. I started to give up. I wanted to breathe. I wanted to leave. But it wasn't enough. And you know what they say? That when you have a near-death experience, your whole life flashes in front of your eyes? Have you heard that? That didn't happen to me. Sorry. Only one memory. Only one came to my mind. And I remember those moments when my mother used to tuck me in bed. And it used to feel so cozy, warm, and ready to go to sleep. And I felt that. And you know what? In the middle of that storm, I was okay. I was fine. And then, snap! In the back of my head. Wake up, breathe. I was able to breathe again. They made a hole in the plastic bag and I heard another guy say, "You're gonna kill him, stupid." With other words, of course. Then my problems shifted. Because my situation was different. And I was trying to understand what is going on. Is this a bad joke? Is it something I did inside that store? Am I being confused? Am I really being kidnapped? They made a right, they made a left, they made speed up. I know where I'm going. This is my town. I know it. I know that we're going on the highway. Then I lost it again. Don't remember anything. When I woke up, I was totally blindfolded. And I wanted to go to the washroom. I wanted to go. I wanted to go to the washroom. But I couldn't. I needed to go on a toilet. And I didn't have any. And I didn't know if I was allowed to. Will they kill me if I ask? What am I supposed to do? So I went from this position of leading the dream, being the boss, being the leader, being the one who receives awards and helps other people, to not being able to go to the washroom on your own. Finally, I decided to ask. They took me to a washroom. They pointed me to the toilet. They pulled my pants out, and they never gave them back to me. I was half naked for the remainder 6 days. I remember that I started to feel some connection with the guy who was feeding me. And I understand as a psychologist that it was the Stockholm Syndrome. I was kind of falling in love with this guy. It's not that bad. I mean, he's the one who brings the water and the food, right? I mean, it should be something. Maybe we can save him. A little therapy, maybe. You know, he's not that of a person. Maybe there's something I can do with him. So one of the nights when I was crying, and they were draining basically my banking accounts because I gave them the numbers and the passwords, I told him, I know that I have no control. I know that you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to ask you for a favor. I'm not going to be here to see if you do me that favor or not, but I want to ask you. Could you please dispose of my body where they can find it? Could you please, when you kill me, would you please throw my body in the road, in a plaza, somewhere where people can find it? I don't want my family and my wife spending all the money they have left trying to find me when I'm already gone. He just laughed and left. I had no control. I had no control over anything. Nothing. They took all the money. I managed to negotiate my own ransom. Time went by, crying, laughing, believe it or not, then crying again, feeling lonely, hopeless. Maybe I have a shot. Maybe I have a chance. Let's see what tomorrow brings. And then, that night, lots of noise, interference, radio communications. I could hear clang, 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 which I believe it was guns or something. They were bringing and taking, and lots of radio communication. They were going back and forth in codes that I didn't understand. Then they brought this person who was crying and complaining and begging for life. And then I heard the sound of the gun. Pow! And no more complaining was heard. Right after that, they came and picked me up, and I said, my God, I'm gone. This is it. And I can feel it right now. Shivering, willingness to throw up. I wasn't able to speak, but I was going wherever they would take me. Then they grabbed me by the hand and put me into a bag. I heard the sliding door. They drove me somewhere, and then they drove me back. They threw me, just like that, and left. I was still blindfolded, but they removed the handcuffs. But still, I didn't know if I wanted to take my blindfold away. Because after 7 days of not seeing anything, I was afraid of seeing something. Because that's what happens normally. Even with the words pain, you get used to it. Then you learn to love it. And you don't want to step away from it. Because it's part of you now. There I was, half naked, in the middle of nowhere, blindfolded, bleeding. But I didn't want out. I was hopeless, submitted, ready to die. They just forgot to put the bullet in my head. I was gone. I don't know for how long I stood there, but then finally I decided to remove the blindfold. You can't see anything after 7 days. It was all white and red and orange and purple, and it would close my eyes and it would hurt. Then I started walking downhill and I found this small house. And I went and knocked the door, and of course I don't blame them. They were scared. I was half naked, bleeding, begging for help. That person didn't want to help me and just pointed and said, grab water from there. What was the dog's plate. And I grabbed the water from the dog and I washed my face. And another person came and gave me a pair of shorts. So I wasn't naked anymore, and I started walking downhill. And I bumped into a truck driver. I was lucky enough, he didn't ask any questions. And he just gave me a ride to my hometown. Next morning, I was preparing to come to the place where all these wonderful people was coming from. I picked Canada. I did everything I could. I sold some properties already I had left, and I managed to get the investor visa, which is the fastest way to come to this country. I landed, but everything happened so fast that I didn't plan beyond my landing. And I didn't know anyone. So I found myself with a backpack outside Toronto International Airport. Just looking at the taxis, the cars, and asking myself, act natural, Jamie. Now what? I don't even know where I'm going. So I would go back and forth, and then I saw people making a line for the taxi, and I made the first mistake, like every single tourist makes in every single country they go to. I asked, what should I do? And they gave me a limo. Fancy taxis they have in Canada, huh? So I jumped in the limo and I told the guy, let's go. He said, where to? Just drive. He said, like, no, sir. I mean, you have to tell me where to first so I can take you to a place later, right? I don't want to have any problems with the fare, so please tell me where you want to go. So, okay, well, let's suppose that you are this newcomer and you don't have any relatives or friends, you don't know anyone in Toronto. This is the first moment you arrive, but this person has all the experience you have already. What would you do? And he said, let's go to Tim Hortons. So he took me to Tim Hortons, and on a napkin I found myself taking notes. And that's how my Canadian adventure started. I believe that life changes in the blink of an eye. It happened to me. I believe that we all keep moving forward depending on what we believe in. Sometimes it's a memory, like my mother taking me in bed. Sometimes it's something you want, like my family being in a peaceful country. Sometimes it's something you believe in. Maybe you're a spiritual person. Whatever it is, you just have to grab that thing and not let go. I'm thankful. I'm proud of where I come from. But I'm thankful for having an opportunity to be in this amazing country. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank Jaime for adding so much to the evening. I heard him speak at a business meeting where we had 45 seconds to make an intro, and I thought, oh my goodness, what an amazing speaker. Thanks so much for sharing your story. I know it's not easy, and Viva Mexico.
I don't think anyone won. Did anyone win? I think you should hear this. She's so shy. Kathleen does not like to be acknowledged for anything whatsoever. Yes.
The first winner, and all of you got high votes, and it was very close, was Kelly, which is very strange. He said to me a few weeks ago, well, Kathleen, I'm booking my flight. Where shall I stay in Toronto? I said, but Kelly, you don't even know if you're in the finals. I'll take my chances, he said. Good choice. Number 2 and 3 are tied, and that is Crystal and Katie.
Trying to run away. You see, she always tries to run away. So on behalf of Kathleen and myself, we'd like to thank all of you for being here this evening. We'd like to thank our marvelous speakers, our judges, for what they contributed here this evening, and all of you for taking the time to come out tonight. And we actually have a talent show every year. Kathleen has your email addresses, and we would love to see you again next year. So thanks very much again for coming out this evening. Have a great night. Now get out.